All right, Mayor of Kingstown season 4 is a wrap. I hadn't talked about the finale, and I have to admit it is ending on a strong note. Episode 9 into 10, the surprise deaths and chaos that's kind of ensued has not been without casualty, and I have to give the show a lot of credit. So let me talk about this finale right now. All right, yeah, Mayor of Kingstown. I think season 1 is still phenomenal. In season 4, the spoiler would be this season's more about Kyle and his story arc than even Mike. Mike has had some strings to pull and some ideas and plans that have kind of worked and not worked, but really this is about Kyle falling on the sword for his brothers because of the situation with Robert. We talked about that in previous videos. All that's come to a head now that Mike had orchestrated the deal for the Detroit guy to come in and get caught so Kyle can get out. And then, of course, everything is breaking because Merle Callahan, the leader of the Aryan Brotherhood, is still on the run. He's out there. And at the end of the episode 9, you have this sort of sneak attack and shooting on the little restaurant where they all are together. And I have to admit, I was pleasantly surprised by all this. And if I have any disappointment, it comes without stakes. We actually don't lose anybody. And I actually am quite disappointed with how this plays out because it really feels like Ian or someone else should have actually gotten killed, but that actually does not happen. Stevie does take a bullet, and that's fine. He's shown that he lives through it. So he's kind of taken out of the mix, but he's not taken off the board, so to speak. We got our brief shot of Callahan in the wake of what he did to Tracy and how things are playing out. He's kind of on the run. How will he kind of, where is he and how will they kind of get their arms around him? Also, you have the storyline with Bunny and the Colombians that are kind of coming into play a little bit, but it's really kind of a letdown after the fact that the Detroit guy is taken off. Lenny James's character is taken off. Frank, right? Frank Moses is taken off the board. So you have now the sneak attack on the Hispanics and the Colombians and all that, and that's going to also go awry. This episode does slow down way too much because they're torturing one of the Aryan Brotherhood guys who's still alive, and you have this sort of back and forth with Mike, and it just goes on way too long. It's showcasing Kyle's just descent into just madness. He's just, punishing the guy for the sake of punishing the guy. It's actually not that interesting. Again, it's showing how evil they've become. Then, of course, we cut to the warden. She's still out there. You cut to the guard who saved Kyle's life, and the big shooting thing with the crazy nut job from previous season. It's fine. She actually has become a character who has like a real serious story arc in all this. It really was quite surprising. I was very kind of opposed to just this random love interest being dropped in like this. She's way more interesting and likable than Evelyn was, this DA assistant. But I gotta be honest, she's also not the greatest mom. Like, all her kids are left home alone, like, all the time. Like, it's a very weird dynamic that these kids are out there, and I guess the teenage boy is basically raising her other kids. But other than that, she's gone through some serious trauma, holding it up really well, and the conversation about the effects of that has been a bright spot in this season. It is interesting to see how her character could evolve more into future episodes. All right, so things are going to go down in the prison. That's right. The big battle is going to happen because lockdown's going to be lifted. They immediately are going to go at one another. There are a ton of casualties and injuries all along the way. It is violent, it's chaotic, and it's done in a different way, which I like than some of the other ones where because it's on these sort of like narrow areas, stuff like that. So very interesting. The shootout, of course, takes place where the Colombians have their auto stuff going on. So Bunny's group surprises them. You have a big shootout as well, and they can finally get their hands on the the big Sicario guy, the guy that's all he's been eluding them this whole time. And Merle, of course, is going to turn himself in. They got that. They're trying to figure out again how to keep that all secret, how to keep it all quiet, and stuff like that. And if there's any real big twist, it's the fact that, she's stuck doing infirmary work for this episode, which they think is a way of having her healthfully deal with things. But sadly, it turns into a mess because where they are, they got one of Bunny's guys. So lots of chaos, lots of things coming home to roost, lots of transitional stuff. The episode's full of that. It's a very packed episode to wrap up the season because Bunny's people left the Sicario guy after torturing him, and they have Merle, who they're going to take out back and basically just turn him over to Kyle. And it's one of those things where uh, he turned into a decent enough villain. I will admit, Kyle shoots him in the knee and he starts like like pitch screaming. Like, dude, you were injured really worse previously. So anyway, that would be my negative in that regard. But it is interesting that they wrap up pieces, but don't wrap up other pieces, keep things moving. So there's clearly going to be another season. Now, I didn't even know there would be another season after season 3 because it kind of felt kind of wrapped up and they keep bringing it on, doing more. So it definitely feels like we're getting another one because we have all sorts of loose ends with the Colombians, the Sicario, he gets free. You do have this new interesting love interest now for Mike. Could Mike possibly ever just walk away? Because in that scene with her, he's like, no, I got to do this in my job. I can't do this. Of course, Kyle, he has a son. There's allusion to, hey, go be with your son. He's like, no, he's obsessed with revenge and vengeance and violence and all that. What happens with his character? Will Ian ever get his comeuppance? Will some of these other things actually come home to roost or not? Yeah. Mayor of Kingstown, still very solid. Probably equally the finale and stuff, it gets so strong in 9 and 10. It actually kind of really helps elevate it and at least puts it in the same conversation with season 2, maybe not season 3. It's all sort of 2, 3, and 4 are kind of discombobulated on what they're doing because it doesn't have a cohesive thing with things moving that you're interested in. And they don't know what to do with Bunny sometimes, so they take him off camera too long, things like that, because he's still one of the highest points and he's really not key in a lot of these elements and stuff like that at the latter season. This focusing on season 5 with Bunny getting his power back and Mike controlling the situation so Bunny can get his power back and not actually be silly and dumb with his decisions, which has kind of been a problem for a long time now. So overall, it really did save the season for me. It was really a nice, strong comeback for season 4, and I am looking forward to seeing more. Mayor Kingstown's a very solid show. Definitely heavy, hard to watch at times, but definitely a good one. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Check out the playlist for all the previous conversations about this season and the show in general. And thanks for watching. I am Pops.
Adios, amigo.